becoming a natural reflector. Life is not a race. It's a catwalk. It's not about being the first all the time. It's about being confident of where you are. Anonymous. In September of 1998, Alexander McQueen, a popular British fashion designer, revealed his spring collection. This particular show, number 13, is famous for being more performance art than fashion show. With each new item in the collection, McQueen lulled the audience into a sense of calm before the final model, Shalom Harlow, in a multi-layered paper dress, strutted alone onto a circular platform in the middle of the catwalk. While the platform slowly rotated, Harlow flailed her arms above her as two car painting robots, like hissing cobras, sprayed her dress with graffiti. With this ending, it was hard for anyone to remember the first model out on the runway was Amy Mullins, who began the show with a brown leather corset, a cream lace skirt, and 6-inch-high wooden Louis XVI boots, hand-carved with flowers, vines, and leaves. The Icelandic singer-songwriter Björk was in the front row of the audience and able to get a close look at the boots. She thought they were beautiful and went backstage to touch them. With that one touch, Björk was convinced she wanted a pair. She just needed to know what it felt like to wear them. Björk asked Mullins if the wood hurt her ankles as she walked. Mullins looked back in amazement. She had walked closely in front of Björk a couple of times in the show. How could she not know these weren't boots? Could Björk not see they were prosthetics? Mullins had been born with no fibulas and had both of her legs amputated below the knee when she was 1 year old. Mullins collected herself and pulled her knee out of the wood. The two just stood there looking at each other, shocked. This was not the first time Mullins had shattered expectations by just being herself. 2 years earlier, she competed in the 1996 Atlanta Paralympics to set the world record in the 200 meters at 34.06 seconds, after only competing for 2 years in track and field. She also was the first ever in the world to try out the carbon fiber spring prosthetics. Mullins has never considered herself disabled. In a 2009 TEDMEG talk, she tells the room of doctors, "There has been a shift in my thinking over time. If you'd asked me at 15 years old if I would have traded prosthetics for flesh and bone legs, I would not have hesitated for a second. I aspired to that kind of normalcy back then. If the doctor asked me today, I'm not so sure. It's because of the experiences I've had with them, not in spite of the experiences I've had with them." Mullins took what she was given and adapted. She did not avoid the challenge of being without legs from the knee down. She leaned into it and looked for ways she could live her life to the fullest. We can be certain not everything worked perfectly for her, but she started with a first step, learned from the experience, adapted what she was doing, tried again, and kept going until she made it. I can imagine she is still seeking out and adapting to new experiences today. As we talked about in the Cult of Action, there will be those who will see us as weak or incapable by not going along with the status quo. When we choose to develop our own processes, the same will wonder why anyone would do that. We can be seen as outsiders who should stay away from the limelight. Who are we to define and achieve success in a different way? As we move to developing our own process, we can shut out these naysayers and be inspired by Amy Mullins to boldly create an authentic life for ourselves. We have the choice to consider ourselves capable of anything. We can accept the challenge of being different. In fact, we can lean into it and live our fullest life. Certainly, there will be moments where our experience is less than perfect. But if we simply take the first step and try, we have much to learn on what and how to adapt so that we can reach the success we desire. Ultimately, our process should be something that supports living our best life and not something that limits our capabilities. If we can apply the principles of this book in an open way and be prepared to adapt as needed, we may take ourselves exactly where we plan to go. Or like Mullins, we may suddenly find ourselves on a catwalk, showing the world how doing things differently makes us absolutely fabulous. You don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. Zig Ziglar. Looking at someone like Amy Mullins striking out on her own can be intimidating. The world is set up in a certain way, and we are thinking of being different. We have this blank sheet of paper before us. Where do we begin? What direction should I be heading in? What if I get out there and fall off the catwalk? When I feel the pressure of questions like these, I often can react by trying to take on everything at once, hoping I am covering all the bases. The result is a whirlwind of activity without any progress. I also know people simply freeze in the state of being overwhelmed. To all of us, the best way to begin developing our own process is to simply take one step at a time. It may seem ridiculous, and I can understand if you suddenly want to stop listening to this audiobook, but a good first step is to develop a process on how we are going to develop a process. How do we know what steps to take? Which one is first? When do we move on to the next step? How will we know we are on our way to making something meaningful? The first step is to answer these questions and establish a practice to review the answers. It's a way of gauging if you are getting what you want out of the effort. It just needs to be a way of checking in with yourself. It could be journaling, it could be social media, it could be blogging. It could be talking it through with a coach. It comes back to choosing a practice that feels easy for you to do. Some way that helps you cut through the chaos and moves you toward what you are trying to accomplish. In a way, it is what you do naturally and making sure you are being true to yourself.